Welcome to the latest episode of Vinyl and Celluloid. With the recent release of James Cameron's sequel to Avatar: The Way of the Water, there's no better time to cover one of the most infamous and troubled productions that bombed at the box office. I'm talking about the Kevin Costner vehicle, Waterworld. Released in the summer of 1995, it was the most expensive blockbuster ever produced at the time, costing a whopping $175 million. Trashed by critics and dubbed as Mad Max with jet skis, the movie was deemed a box office bomb. To discuss the original version and the 3-hour extended cut, dubbed the Ulysses Cut, I have with me Antonio Araujo from the podcast Segundo Take. Antonio, welcome.
Hi, Pedro.
Antonio, it's great to have you as a guest and to talk about this iconic movie. But before we get there, this would be the perfect opportunity for you to introduce yourself, talk about your projects.
Yes, my projects are mainly of interest of Portuguese-speaking crowd because my main project is Segundo Take, where I talk about movies in Portuguese. And I have other side projects like Universos Paralelos and Três Já é Companhia, and mainly we are talking about movies and cinema on these projects.
And you also talk about, you have the video club segment, right, where you go over your personal collection?
Yeah, that's a little feature that I came up with, that in fact I do it when I have to cover up some gaps on the programming of my main program. So
yeah, featurette or futurette, right?
or futurette,
as some people would call it. That's terrific. I mean, we'll jump right into the water, pardon the pun, and talk about Waterworld. And I mean, you're slightly older than I am, but again, what was your experience? I mean, your story, your connection with the movie. How big was it in 1995 when it was released? Tell me all about like your first point of contact with this movie.
Yeah, this one is one of those movies that was so talked about that I think that most people talked about it and then saw it. So it was my case. Yeah. I got washed up in the hype of the failure that it was announced, and I never saw it until I think last year.
Oh well.
So my story with the movie is I ignored it for forever until recently, where I took upon to see it and to see what all the fuss was about.
Yeah, judge by yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, but was it immediately, was there a hype? Because you know that during the pre-production, there was a bit of a hype, there was a focus on the budget, but there was also, oh, look, it's a new Kevin Costner movie. What was it immediately, like the first thing you read or saw, was it, oh, it's crap because it's very expensive?
Well, I don't remember exactly, but I think that Kevin Costner was coming out of the success,
The Bodyguard.
And Dances with Wolves. Uh-huh. It was 5 years before, but there was this image of Kevin Costner in epics.
Yeah.
But then I think that Hollywood was not very kind to troubled productions.
Yes.
So the troubled production with the rising costs were equal to disaster.
Yeah.
And I think that in hindsight, that's not the case, because the quality of the movie and even the box office doesn't equate to what we remember about the movie.
Exactly.
And the reception.
Yeah. No, we will cover that topic. Just a bit of trivia for those listening to us, and for you, Antonio. Do you know the 2 nicknames that the movie got?
Yes.
Do you know it from IMDb?
Fish Star.
Dubbed after Ishtar, 1987,
yes,
right?
another bomb, and Kevin's Gate.
Exactly, after Heaven's Gate. Yeah, correct. You take the prize. I mean, I guess I don't know if it's my age or something, but this for me it was a slightly different experience. This was the first time I heard about it was in 1997, and this was pre-internet everywhere. So I was at a friend's place. And it was her birthday party, and her father was very big on tech, not so much on cinema, but he invested quite a lot in building his own cinema, like home cinema status, like the place and everything. And he bought, in bulk, some laser discs. Remember those?
Yeah.
And basically, I remember because like it's still something that I do, and it's not very polite. But when I go to someone's place, I'm drawn to their music collection, the books that they have on display, and movies, of course. And so this movie was there, with that iconic. It was the original DVD, with Kevin Costner's face slightly faded, and then the sunset, and then the symbol that's on his back. And I was like, whoa, this must be like a movie from the future. It hasn't been released yet here, but this looks amazing, And just from that poster, and that's the power of marketing, I knew that I had to see it. I wanted to see it. But then I forgot, I kept reading like the new releases, and Waterworld never came up. So I was like, fine. And then one day I went with my uncle and aunt to Albufeira, believe it or not. And this was the following summer, I think. And there was this like little raft in the middle of the water. Mm-hmm. And my uncle was like, oh, this has been there for ages. This is almost like Waterworld. And I was like, whoa, wait, you know about this? And I was like, yeah, we went to the movies to see it. I was like, oh, so it's already available? Yeah, but it's crap. My uncle was, still is like, well, he doesn't go to the movies that often anymore, but he used to be very hyped about, the big budget productions, and only to be disappointed. And another perfect example is Independence Day. So he was like, during the whole summer, this is going to be great. And then when the movie was released here in Portugal in October 1996, he went to see it. I was like, it's crap. So that's pretty much like
that I can understand.
Fair enough. But anyways, so I was then aware that the movie was already available, and I was like, I need to see it. So all the rental stores nearby, we didn't have Blockbuster, so it was all major, like, independent stores, and they didn't carry the movie. And it was only until, I think it was in 1999, when the movie was on the old Telecine, premium cable, and the movie was on. I was like, oh, Dad, we need to see this. And we watched the movie, but I don't think we finished it. It was the original cut, like the theatrical cut, so nothing major. And it was, I wouldn't say underwhelming, but it was kind of like, well, I felt like my uncle, okay, so this is it, right? But yeah, I'm already getting ahead of myself and talking about my first impression. When you saw it last year, what was your first impression? And again, did you see, I assume, the slightly extended cut, not the 3-hour one?
Well, I don't know about the slightly extended cut. All I know is about the 2 1/4 original cut and the Ulysses cut that you introduced me to.
Yeah.
Because when you invited me, I didn't even know about the Ulysses cut.
Yeah, I invited you after seeing the Ulysses cut just out of curiosity last year. So basically, like, if you see it, there are officially 2 versions, but there were some scenes that were restored for, I believe, ABC. Or NBC, because it was a Universal one, and they restored some of it.
I didn't see that cut. Okay. I saw the original cut. And it's funny because when I saw it, my reaction was more or less yours, where I thought it was underwhelming and not deserving of the bashing that it got, but underwhelming. But now that I saw it again in the 2 versions, the original and the Ulysses, I must say that, my name is Antonio, and I'm a Waterworld fan for about 1 week.
There you go. The first step to deal with the problem is to admit you have one.
The 7-step program.
Exactly. No, that's interesting. I then bought the DVD, right, in 2005, and it had the additional scenes, not the 3-hour cut, because that was only released a couple of years ago or last year. And when I watched it for the second time, for the first time, I felt it was a bit boring. I was 8 when I saw it, and I thought it was visually stunning, but still a bit boring. And I guess the characters, right? I think I only watched Mad Max 1 and 2. I never watched the one with Tina Turner, Beyond Thunderdome.
Until now?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's still on my list.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't fair to compare it to Mad Max, but I still felt that the movie was a bit sluggish. There were some nice scenes, but I mean that was it, you know.
And that's the original cut.
Yeah, with the additional few scenes that were shown on TV in the 90s. And I mean the movie.
But do you feel that now, or
so that's the thing. Like when in 1999, definitely didn't care much for it, and the characters, right? I couldn't relate to them, and I felt that it was very wooden. Again, I was 8. I had never seen a movie. I think I'd seen Speed by the time, so I was familiar with Dennis Hopper, and of course I knew of Kevin Costner, but. I mean, those names meant nothing to me other than that. And then in 2005, when I bought the DVD, and I don't recall why, maybe it was on sale, I kind of enjoyed it, especially because I appreciated the action sequences even more.
Yes.
And I also had the benefit of experiencing the live show at Universal Studios, where you get the whole atoll sequence, like the attack. Okay. They reenact it for you. And it was impressive because it was pretty much like the movie, right? So you you experience like face to face, not on a screen, like the live thing, and you see, wow, this is exactly like the movie, and you can appreciate the value, the details, the effort that was put into it, and then you extrapolate that into the whole movie, into the whole production. And I mean, I enjoyed it more. Again, I didn't think it was a 5 out of 10, right? Not the best.
Well, I think I like the movie more than you, and I think that
we haven't covered the Ulysses cut or my opinion.
But let's talk about the original before the Ulysses, because I might sound like a curmudgeon, but one of the things I like about this movie is that there is not 1 ounce of CGI on this movie, and
there is that sea creature. Right.
Well, there are some special effects that I believe that are not CGI. I believe there are composites. But what I mean is that this is a movie of another era that we now look back and look more fondly than before. And the thing is, I think this movie is amazingly shot.
Yes.
And I think the action sequences alone are worth the movie. And are very exciting and very well directed. Yeah. Even if Kevin Costner and Kevin Reynolds didn't get along,
that's very true.
I think that this movie is amazing in the delivery of these action scenes, and the rest we can talk about. But I think that there is one thing that is interesting. That is the Kevin Costner being a star, an Hollywood star. Was able or accepted for his protagonist to be very unlikable.
Yes,
and I think that there is the twist. Well, his character has an arc and he redeems himself in the end, but for
large portion
of the movie is very, very unlikable, and I was a little set back and surprised by this option, and because Kevin Costner wasn't known for making bold choices in his roles, so. These are some of the things that I like about this movie in the original. We're talking about the original,
of course,
cut.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that obviously when you watch a movie and people like us, we do like to read about it and do a little bit more research. And he was going through a divorce at the time, so I don't know how much that influenced. And it was a very expensive divorce, but I don't know how much that influenced him. We know that, for example, George Lucas and Spielberg were a bit moody when the Temple of Doom was shot in 1984. Yeah. So considering the role that Kevin Costner took, not only as the lead actor, but also as a producer and later on as a director, non-credited director. I think maybe his involvement in the whole thing was a bit impacted by that. I'm not saying that he was very chipper on the screenplay, Mariner, the character, but still, it was. Maybe that had played an influence.
And I think the divorce was with Kevin Reynolds, no?
Well, yeah, I don't think they ever...
Because they had worked 3 times before.
Was it the Prince of Thieves, right? Robin Hood?
Fandango and Rapa Nui, where Kevin Costner was only a producer, not a star.
Oh, Fandango, I like that one. Yeah. I haven't seen it in ages. Yeah, you mentioned the whole production value and the action sequences, and I agree with you there. I would just like to mention James Newton Howard's score.
Yeah.
Which wasn't the original score, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it was Mark Isham.
Yeah, and it was very ethnic as they put it on IMDb, so they didn't like it very much.
Well, it's curious because I am now reading a book about rejected soundtracks, and it's amazing the number of soundtracks over the history of movies that were rejected, and it goes much further than I thought, and it's business as usual to reject the score and to come a second composer and compose another score. And in this case, I think that Mark Isham, I don't know. Mark,
don't really know.
That he complains that they didn't gave him a shot at the second soundtrack.
Yeah.
Because what happens sometimes, I read, is that when they preview movies, be it to executives or to audiences, when they don't like it, it's easier for them to
get someone new.
Yes, well, to blame the soundtrack and say, okay, so let's get rid of it and get a brand new soundtrack, than to try to correct something.
Yeah.
So it is very often that a full soundtrack is made and then disposed and replaced.
And just out of curiosity, like I'm only aware is not the right term. So I actually listened to the whole score composed by Lalo Schifrin for The Exorcist, but I know of some cases. But from the book, do you know, or can you give some examples of scores that like shocked you? Oh, I didn't know that there was an original score for this one, or some dramatic stories.
There are so many, but for instance, and sometimes even scores that improve, I believe, on the original concept. For instance, Hellraiser from Clive Barker had an original score by a band that I think it's Coil.
Okay.
I think I'm not mistaken. That was very experimental, and they chose to. Well, and it's funny because in horror movies sometimes they reject it because it's too scary.
True.
And they said, okay, no, let's not go that far.
Yeah.
And they brought Christopher Young to do a score that I think it's amazing. The Christopher Young score.
Really good.
And well, there are some few known, like 2001.
Yeah.
That had a score by Alex North, but I don't have examples of movies that shocked me. What shocks me is that many composers that are consecrated, but they too have scores that are rejected. It's not because they are a great name in composing music for film.
Yeah.
So James Horner, Jerry Goldsmith, all of them were replaced. Were replaced and replaced.
Wow.
For instance, Jerry Goldsmith, one of his last scores was going to be that Richard Donner movie about the time travel. What's it called? Time
Stop or something like that.
Something like that. And Richard Donner collaborated with Goldsmith a lot. But when he saw that he asked him the wrong thing, he tried to ask him to do another score, and Goldsmith said, "No, I'm not doing it."
Yeah.
And he, out of respect, put it aside and brought another one. That's very interesting. There are many stories like this.
I mean, I've never listened to, I don't know if it's even available, the Mark Isham score, but what do you think about James Newton Howard's
I love
work?
it. I love it. I think that it's one of the things that I forgot to mention that I liked about the movie, because I think it's half the movie on the action scenes.
And the pan flutes, even on the more quiet, or even when Enol is learning to swim, etc. It's quite good.
I think it's very discreet. It doesn't intrude on those scenes. It's a beautiful backdrop, and then when the action kicks in, I think that it's amazing, the score.
For sure. And so, I mean, we focused on the highlights, or at least of the original cut, and before we get into what was for many years deemed lost and not available, the Ulysses cut, do you think that Waterworld deserves the reputation it had, or at least still has, maybe had? You already gave your answer, which is no.
Yes, with everything that I've been talking about, I think it doesn't deserve it. And even if there wasn't an Ulysses cut and there weren't deleted scenes that we could look at, the movie is flawed. There are some plot holes and some things, But even at the original cut, that by the way, it was the original cut that was finished by Kevin Costner after Kevin Reynolds bailed and was fed up. Yeah. And there is a phrase that I love that Kevin Reynolds said about Kevin Costner. Do you know what is?
He gets to work with his favorite director and producer.
He should only star in Kevin Costner directed movies, because then he would work with his favorite actor and favorite director.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic, this quote. So even in that flawed, shorter version, I don't think that the movie deserved that bashing, the reputation, and in fact, the movie eventually was successful economically.
I was about to touch on that point.
And it opened number 1 in the box office, so it was not a failure. What the thing is that the critics lambasted it, I believe, even before sawing it, and then they can't go back when the movie is released, and the movie gets a reputation that I think it's for the budget going to never seen before.
Well, for a very short period, because James Cameron then topped it up. We know James Cameron does what James Cameron.
But even James Cameron was lambasted before Titanic coming out. So I think that Hollywood frowned upon these values.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the first point, I do agree with you, and when we talk about the economics of it. So for those of you who don't know, the costs of production in your average Hollywood movie were spiraling out of control, especially since the late 80s. You had Rambo 3 costing $60 million in 88, then 2 years later Die Hard 2 and Total Recall, then Terminator 2, then True Lies, and then just 1 year after, Waterworld, right? So, I mean, I completely agree with you. There was a general concern, and even if you read the Katzenberg Manifesto, it was a general concern throughout the industry. And again, critics were eager to point out and look, a new failure, another failure. Mm-hmm. You are absolutely correct when you address the fact that the movie opened at number 1. And you're also correct that the movie indeed turned a profit, not only because it reaped, I think, 180 million in international markets.
Yeah.
And also, the rentals, TV releases, all those additional revenue streams that movies don't have access to nowadays. Back then, they actually turned the movie into a success. It had tons of marketing and the additional merchandise. So there was a video game for Super Nintendo and all that.
A novelization also.
As well, right? So it was extremely, I wouldn't say, well, not extremely, but it was successful. It wasn't a bomb. Back to a point you made, and this I don't know, maybe we need to compare it and see it with other releases in 1995, and that was the case of Batman Forever and all those things. But we're talking about a movie that now is valued because we're like overdosing on CGI. Basically anything like that gets made, with the exception of even the latest Mad Max, right? The Fury Road.
Yes.
It's great. But again, nowadays CGI overload is the norm, not the exception. And
yes, sorry for cutting you, but I think that it's most impressive. It's more impressive to see something that was captured on a camera.
Yeah.
A stunt that was captured, than the most impressive thing that you saw, but it was made on a computer.
Yeah.
So that's not bashing the computer artists and computer graphics. It's amazing, but it's not so overwhelming and impressive to look at it on a movie. And even I was seeing Die Hard 2 recently.
Yeah.
And I'm not very fond of that movie, and even that movie impressed me.
Yeah.
Because of course it has special effects and optics and things that are somewhat dated. Even in Waterworld, there are some things in the last third of the movie.
The balloon.
The balloon is very dated, but the things that are stunts captured on camera are much more impressive when we know that someone did it. I think that's part of the success of Top Gun, for instance.
Yes.
That we are talking about this year. Top Gun Maverick. I think that It's like, and I think that Top Gun Maverick is like a love letter from Tom Cruise to those kinds of movies.
I completely agree. Couldn't agree more, and I think that's part of why we value the movie a bit more nowadays. I would also say that, again, maybe at the time there was a big push, especially after Jurassic Park, on what computers could do. So people, audiences, they were keen on seeing there wasn't the CGI overload. So basically I feel that, oh, this is just another one, you know, like pretty much we're talking about CGI nowadays where, oh, look, another CGI driven movie. Probably this was like how audiences reacted to Waterworld in 1995. We've seen it. We've seen this plenty of times. There's nothing new. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, great stunts. So what, right? But combining these 2 points, the financial point of the movie and the visual side of it, I think out of the 175 million, and we know that there were a lot of costs in rebuilding sets because of a typhoon and all that stuff, every single dollar spent, or almost every single dollar spent, is on the screen.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like Ishtar, for example. Most of the money went to Warren Beatty's and Dustin Hoffman's account. Here you see it on the screen, and I think that's exactly what you're saying. All the choreography, all the stunts, even Jack Black smoking a cigar on the plane and everything. I think it's fantastic, and that's something really terrific. And at the time, I don't think there was a direct competition, especially that summer, because now I can only think of Die Hard with a Vengeance and Batman Forever, like titles released in summer of 95. As you can tell, I prepared a lot for this.
Yes, well, and to be honest, I don't remember exactly what were the box office at 95.
Yeah, no, these were two that were champions, you know, but there wasn't like something massive that summer. But it's funny because people trashed Waterworld, but a few months later there was something even worse that actually bankrupted the whole studio, you know, Cutthroat Island with...
never saw it.
No, I saw it early this year for an article I'm writing, actually featuring Waterworld and Cutthroat Island, and it was directed by Rennie Harlin from Die Hard 2. And I mean, that's a movie that was a flop, you know. That's 10 million out of 100 million in grosses. I think 10, I'm being generous.
So technically, that was a flop.
That was a flop, but that didn't make any movies. And that bankrupted Carolco, which was already in a precarious position.
Okay.
But it was actually the studio had to choose between Cutthroat Island or Paul Verhoeven's directed Crusade with Schwarzenegger.
Oh, that never was made.
That was never made.
Yeah,
and they went with the former. And I mean, the movie again. It's something I saw it, and it was on par with Pirates of the Caribbean, minus the Johnny Depp and visual effects. But it's not bad. Again, all the money that was invested is on the screen. You know, the stunts, the special effects, everything. And you can tell that those were expensive stunts to replicate. They built everything in Malta and I believe Turkey as well, all shot in the Mediterranean. It's there, right? And I think that's something we no longer see. If a movie fails, was it the CGI that was expensive? What was the reason, right? For example, that movie by Disney, John Carter, right?
Yes.
Why was it so expensive? Was it the visuals? Do you see it on the screen? Is it better than something that cost half?
Well,
visually,
I tend, from the looks of it, I tend to run away from perceived bombs because I never saw John Carter also.
No, I haven't seen it,
but you know that I'm very fond of seeing Cutthroat Island because that's one of the movies that I always wanted to see it. I don't know why I didn't yet, and it also has one thing that disappeared from movies, that is a great poster by Drew Struzan.
Oh yeah, that's correct. I mean, even the trailer, if you see it, it promises like a big adventure, and it's not bad. I have to say, it's not bad.
But I believe that neither Gina Davis or Matthew Modine were big stars that could carry a movie.
Gina Davis was deemed the box office star after Thelma and Louise. She had an Oscar, and she was also married to Rennie Harlin.
Well, but that
made it easy. I mean, she was deemed the box office star, and they believed she could carry the movie. They tried to bring Tom Cruise and Michael Douglas, but they wanted more money and equal screen time, and she refused. Both refused, and that's why they settled with Matthew Modine.
Well, they settled. Matthew Modine, I believe it's a great actor.
Oh, he is.
Not a star.
No, he doesn't carry that name. And yeah, that's why I think that the movie it doesn't deserve that reputation. But I mean, there's still, like you pointed out, some flaws, and one of them is I mean, nobody was expecting Shakespeare, right? But the acting is a bit, again, Kevin Costner, I don't know if he was getting too much into character and forcing himself to be disliked, but it's almost like a wooden performance, you know?
Well, it's because it's very close. I don't think that I'm so critical of the performances. Because like I said, it's very mean and very off-putting.
Yeah.
And I think that Dennis Hopper is just having fun, right?
He is, but
I don't think that
he's eating the whole scenery.
Yeah.
He doesn't chew it.
Let's be honest. I don't think that Dennis Hopper is as much fun as he is in other movies.
Yeah.
But I think that he is having fun.
Oh no, absolutely. And I mean, even I don't think like it's not as over. No, it's like. It's close to Blue Velvet, I think, like in terms of being a bit over the top but justified.
But
it's in case of
it's not as over the top as Super Mario Brothers, right?
Exactly, and a bit like campy as it is in Speed. We have to say, right? He's a bit.
Oh yeah, in Speed he's also chewing the scenery, right?
So
even on the phone.
yeah, absolutely. But I think again, then Jean Triplehorn, she's okay, but
well, yeah, she never had much of a career, and I think that this didn't help, right?
No, that's very true. But again, Dennis Hopper, who was an Oscar-nominated actor, he was in great movies. You mentioned Dances with Wolves, JFK. And of course, The Bodyguard, which were like released close to each other in the span of 3 years. And I mean, even in Bodyguard, I mean, critics didn't love him, but he made money.
Even in the 80s, No Way Out, for instance, was a big success, I believe. And movies like that. Well, in Robin Hood, did you?
I mentioned Robin Hood. I was about to say that this performance is just slightly more livelier than his performance in 1983's The Big Chill.
Well,
he plays the corpse.
Where he plays the corpse that was that cut of the movie, right?
Yeah. Well, you still see
his nose maybe coming out of the coffin.
No, you see the wrists and everything, but yeah.
Well, let me be perfectly honest. I still prefer Kevin Costner here.
Yeah.
Where you can see that he's losing hair when his hair is wet, than in Robin Hood, where is a Robin Hood with American accent and a mullet.
Oh yeah, that's right. The mullet.
So I don't know. I don't know. You pick it.
You're talking about that, and it's funny. Now you mentioned that, and I completely forgot that there's an entry point again on IMDb on trivia that he actually paid out of his own pocket to get the CGI to cover up his receding hairline. Well, so we were talking about CGI, but yeah.
But in what movie?
In Waterworld.
Really?
They didn't do a good job.
No, because
you can still see it.
You can still see it, especially when it's wet. There is some scenes where you can see perfectly.
Maybe you didn't pay them enough. No. Nothing's free in Waterworld, as they say in the movie. But as we trashed Kevin Costner's hairline or receding hairline and elevated some of the aspects of the movie, we now go to something that fans and audiences had never seen before. It was released, I think, last year, 2 years ago, maybe a couple of years more. But it was the Ulysses cut, and this is a close to 3 hour or over 3 hour cut of the movie that restores every single thing that was deleted before, and I think it's on par with Aliens and some of in the Abyss.
Well, I think that's very different because if you allow me,
sure.
What happened was that for some TV exhibitions, there were scenes that were restored that had been cut by Kevin Costner. I believe that for the movie to fulfill some time quota.
Yes.
But on those versions, because it was TV versions, some of the swear words were cut. Were cut. So then what happened was that people got hold of these versions and they cut a version with all the possible scenes, combining the original version with these TV versions. Mm-hmm. And what's amazing to me is that came to be known as the Ulysses cut, that made the movie as big as as it could be with all the scenes restored, was then later edited by Anchor.
Yes,
Anchor
that is
Bay.
correct. Yeah, that was
Well, where you had all the movie with the best possible quality.
Yeah.
So
consistent.
yes, so this part is amazing because there is an official edition of this movie, an official release.
That is correct.
But this cut was made by fans.
Exactly.
So it's not the Kevin Reynolds director's cut a restored vision of the author, but the fans' version.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's not like what they did now with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where it's individually, so you don't see the full movie with the scenes restored, the 3-hour.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, they brought
also
back 1 hour of the movie. It was released a couple months ago.
Okay.
But you need to see the scenes individually, right? That's a bit like off-putting. You just sit there watching 5-minute clips for an hour.
Yeah.
But basically, what I meant when I compared it to Aliens and The Abyss was in the sense of it expanded on the movie and gave you, at least to me, a different perception and a different perspective on the story that I already knew.
Well, I agree with you, but not 100%, because what happened with Aliens, and James Cameron used to do this a lot, because he trimmed these movies to the theaters and then expanded them on home releases. Even on movies like Aliens, there are some segments that were pulled out, and you kind of don't miss it on the original version. And the Ulysses cut, you can finally see that the original cut was trimmed everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's not that there are one entire sequence missing, but that every scene starts a little bit earlier and ends a little bit later, and in the middle there is something that was cut. So you can almost see it or understand the exercise of editing.
Yeah.
Where you see all the trims, and I think that. It's very interesting because of that, because not always keeping everything in your movie is the best choice.
Sure.
But you can see what the original intent was.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Just one quick thing for the listeners there. Just the difference between the Ulysses cut and the original cut. We're talking about over 40 minutes worth of new footage that pushes the movie from the 2-hour, 15-minute barrier to over or close to 3 hours. And now to the differences and the impact. And I mean, you've seen the two versions recently. I've only seen the Ulysses cut recently. I mean, what do you feel that... my opinion is that there is, like you said, there's more violence and carnage, and that's usually what you get from horror movies, that you get like seconds that are cut just to meet a certain rating. But I also think some of them are mostly cosmetic, extension of existing sequences.
Yeah. And,
a cut here showing, the peace scene in the beginning and the nudity aboard the ship. But I mean... In your opinion, what are the scenes that you could spot the difference other than these? Okay, it started a bit earlier and finished later, and what was the impact that you felt?
Well, to be honest, the ones that show more violence or those bits like that, I don't notice. What I noticed is the more fleshing out of character, and definitely in the Ulysses cut you have character more fleshed out. And sometimes more of the backdrop of the story. And I think that the movie becomes richer in terms of its mythology and we knowing the characters. In terms of pace, one thing that I noticed in the original cut was that the ending seemed a bit rushed for me. And now I think that the movie has another pace, a more complete... and more streamlined pace, even if it's longer, which is funny. Because, for instance, I give you an example. There is this scene that Kevin Costner is going aboard that tanker, and the Enola is saying, "Oh, he doesn't have a name because death can catch him." And there is something of a montage that makes him look like a superhero,
almost like Rambo, killing them on board.
And I think that in the original cut, when I saw it, the immediate thought was that, oh, they must have cut something here and they chose to edit this way.
Yeah.
And I think that this scene goes a little bit longer, and you see more the ways that he had to overcome, what he had to overcome to get in the tanker. So I think that in terms of pace, I notice in the end the movie now breathes a little easier.
It flows better.
Yeah.
I mean, my point, just to comment on first on the character bit and then on the production. So I think the additional scenes and dialogues, they bring out Mariner's character arc. You know, it shows that the screenplay was a little bit better, if you will, no matter how you feel originally about the screenplay, but it's a bit better and more well thought. I mean, you almost have like his belief that humans are destined for extinction and therefore cannot be saved. He's very determined, and that explains why he's always like pissed off all the time. And it also explains the cold attitude and that he displays towards everybody else, because they're not disposable, but they're beyond salvation. And also why it takes him so long to take Enola and Enola's friend, Jeannie Triplehorn's character, Ellen, to take them both on board and to actually allow them to, go on their mission.
And also because he believes that there is no dry land.
True.
And so he doesn't want to play along.
Yeah.
Right. And I think one of the things that is shown in the Ulysses cut that it's not very perceptible in the original cut is the threat to the kid within the its own community.
True.
When the smokers are appearing, they have that trial.
Yes.
Of the Mariner.
Yes.
And in this sequence, not only the Mariner is targeted, but also the kid, and they want to get rid of the kid, and that is something that is an urgency that wasn't there in the original.
I completely agree with you, and I think that goes into the production side and more to something you touched before, which is the mythology around Waterworld. And I think if we talk about characters and we talk about the production, we get to see more of two things. The first is what's life like at the atoll, right? So you got the hierarchy, the superstition that you mentioned, right? She attracted the bad things in Ola, and also the beliefs. There's a scene where they're showing like different tools and things and crap that they took from his boat, right? And they're like, "What's this?" And there's something that's like played for comic relief. I don't recall what it is.
Well,
this item,
because they are assuming, they are jumping to conclusions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so they're very superstitious. But there's also a hierarchy there that's it's neither Western nor Eastern. It's a mix, like everyone in that movie, right?
Yes, and it's a bit like a religion.
Exactly, and how they get rid of, dispose of the bodies.
Yes. And even the villain of the movie, it's a religion that he.
Yeah, the deacon.
Yes. The deacon.
And that's great, because I was about to touch on the extended scenes that involve the smokers and live aboard the Exxon Valdez. I mean, maybe the listeners are not
after years of infamy.
Yeah,
I love that.
What was it, Captain Joe? Guide me, Captain Joe.
Captain Joe. After years of infamy.
It's just I think, I mean, I haven't seen the new Avatar, but I recall the original one and the ecological message of the movie and whatnot. But I think this one plays out in such sardonic and dry way, like using the Exxon Valdez, using Captain Joe, everything. It's just it's there, the message. It's just delivered in such a zany way that you're kind of like.
If you want to compare it to The Way of Water, this is super subtle.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I just think that just getting a bit more perspective on both the villains and, again, the communities, it almost makes you feel like, wow, this was somebody sat down and wrote or created an entire world with rules, laws, religion, people, hierarchy, and it goes to show like the amount of effort that was put into that production. And I think this is one of the things that I really enjoy the most about these extended scenes, because you see like when he shows the rear view mirror to the kids, that's on the original cut. But this one, they show more items, and it's just so funny to see, like, oh, what the hell is this?
A Time Master.
Oh, yeah, that's it, right?
It's a torture device.
That's the one. That was the one. See, there you go. That was the one I was thinking about. And so that's, I don't think it hurts the movie. It shows a more human side of the characters. Yeah. And that's something I thoroughly enjoyed. And, I mean, when we get to the ending, and again, a bit of spoilers here, we finally realize why it's called the Ulysses Cut. And you mentioned that you didn't find the ending. You find the ending. The original one was very rushed. This one a bit better, or with a better flow.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on the overall, like, on this ending component?
Well, the ending is funny because I believe that the ending may be a part of the bad reputation of the movie, because I think people are used to movies to end up on a high note after an action sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is a brave movie that dispatches the action sequence, and then you have like a denouement.
Yeah.
And the movie it's like an anticlimax, the movie, because after disposing of the villain, now we have to resolve what happens to those characters.
Yeah.
And then you have the finding of the dry land, and then the decision of the mariner that's not life for him because he's
belongs in the sea.
Belongs in the sea. So I for one like it. But I think that it's a little bit disappointing for people to see the hero not to get the fruits of the land, and not to live happily ever after. And so I think that it's a brave ending that may have contributed to the reception of the movie. I believe.
I agree. I mean, there is certainly some closure for Ellen and for the survivors and for Enola, even if it's a sad one.
Well, and sorry for interrupting you, but all the time I'm thinking, now this is the group that's going to repopulate this. Now this is very messed up thinking about this, but that's the way,
you
that's
have
the way
to,
it is.
That's the way it is. That's why they never made Waterworld 2, But I do agree with you. I think the original, I'm not that not negative, but I don't see it as in the same light as you do. I think it's abrupt and certainly not as fulfilling. But the new one, it retains the same. Mariner goes back to the sea, and that's it. I think first we get to understand where the Ulysses title comes from, and that's to me more than just pointing at the screen like Leo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but more of a closure and a better closure of his character arc, because he changed. Mm-hmm. He's not the same person he was before, whereas if you see the original cut, it's kind of like, nothing happened. The movie could have, he was instrumental, but that's it.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's that much of a change, but I can see what you think.
I see a better closure, or at least a development.
Yes, because it was better developed.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think it's also more satisfying in a traditional Hollywood way. You got a bit more of the extended scenes, between the two leads.
Yeah, but imagine people at the movies after 2.5 hours, to realize that there is like half an hour missing, or still to see, and why didn't the movie end?
Yeah.
So I agree with you that it's a more satisfying ending and a more satisfying arc for the character, but at the same time I can see people getting very anxious. Yes.
Yeah. I agree. But overall, the Ulysses cut, we're both on the same page. It improves the movie. To me, it allowed me to have even more respect for the whole production and the creative team behind this world that they create, this world populated by water, if you will.
And let me tell you something that I still haven't said, but I'm a big fan of these post-apocalyptic movies. And this movie came to be as a Mad Max ripoff.
Yes.
I don't know the name of the writer. The original writer that ended up writing the screenplay with David Twohy. Mm-hmm. Sorry for not remembering him, but he had this original idea, and original in quotes, because it was, let's make a ripoff of Mad Max, but on this setting, on the water, where the water rose. And I love these environments where everything came to a halt and you had to repurpose everything that you found make machines again and to make things work. And I think that in this movie it's especially well made.
Yeah.
All of the things that are practical, that you can see that it's other things that were repurposed and retooled.
Exactly.
And I think it's fascinating. And everything looks rusty and old.
Yeah.
And everything looks functional, and it's very pleasing if you are a fan of these types of movies.
Yeah, the detail as well.
Yes, yes.
So on that note, you know that the original screenplay was pitched to Roger Corman.
Oh no!
Right, yeah. So in the 80s, that's why it was sold as a ripoff, just because that would be the kind of thing that would appeal Roger Corman. But it then proved to be too expensive.
Yes,
for Mr. Corman's pocket. And I mean, I mentioned this, and there as a joke that that's the reason why we don't have a Waterworld 2. But I mean, what are your thoughts on a potential? And I mean, this is very hypothetical.
Can I?
Sure.
Before you go to Waterworld 2, there are two things that I still want to say about the movie.
Go for it.
One of them is that the indigenous language that's spoken, it's Portuguese Greek. And it doesn't resemble either Portuguese or Greek, which is fascinating. And another thing is that I want to share with you my favorite joke of the movie, because this is not a very jokey movie.
No.
But there is one scene that makes me laugh to no end. There is, on the tanker of the boat, there is a man that works there that's always
underneath
with no he says, well, good morning or good night, whatever it applies. And then when finally the explosion comes, he looks at the flames and he says, thank God.
Oh yeah.
So the release. I think it's very funny.
I thought the deacon threw something at him. He throws something at him when he talks.
No. What happens is that in the first scene that he appears, he throws very flippantly a cigar, and someone has to catch it.
Oh yeah, because it was filled with oil.
Yes, because it was filled with oil, and in the end, it's the mariner that lights a match or something. Yeah, and that whole thing explodes, and he looks and he says, Thank God. I think it's so funny.
It is. I mean, I thought somebody threw something at his head, but yeah, you're right, they captured. And I think all the characters aboard the tanker are hilarious, even when they're trying to get his new eye.
Yes, that's also very funny.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fine. It's better than before.
Yeah. And even the way the deacon executes people. You promised you wouldn't kill me. Maybe I did.
And he hands the gun to another one
guy and he shoots him. It's good. The first of the two to talk lives. That's the game he plays. Oh well. Well, it's a shame if we had a sequel, we wouldn't be able to get even some cameo by Dennis Hopper, who sadly passed away.
I believe they would find a way
to bring him back. But even on that note, I mean, I mentioned Mad Max Fury Road, which I loved. I don't know your thoughts about that.
I love Mad Max Fury Road.
It was great, and looking forward to Furiosa. But despite the success of Mad Max, there is no hint, no glimmer of hope for a sequel to Waterworld. And I mean, again, that's the world we live in, but if you were to get a sequel, or if you had the chance to direct a reboot sequel, Mad Max Fury Road style or not, what would you like to go with, or what would be your idea?
Well, there is absolutely potential, right? And I think that Mariner is out there in the sea, and I believe that what could be done is that he would encounter threats, like packs of people that would learn of the land, and he would have to save the people that he left there and the community that he started to build in dry land. So I think that this could be a potential, but I'm no writer and I have limited ideas.
You are a dreamer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you. I penciled down a couple of ideas, but first of all, I think it would still need to rely on practical effects, and that's very expensive.
Well, but sorry to inform you that even those movies that promise us that don't deliver. No, I remember Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the fourth Indiana Jones, that promised a return to the ways of the past and the action, live action, and no CGI, and then it was a CGI fest. Yeah. So I don't. Well, you are a dreamer with those.
Fair enough. Well, I have no hopes for Indiana Jones 5 in terms of the visual effects. So Yes, maybe I am. But I mean, I had the two ideas, which one, either a sequel similar to yours, focused on the battle for dry land between the survivors and maybe a new kind of enemy,
Yeah.
because I don't believe that the smokers were the only enemy around
Well,
the
there are
seas.
many people on the sea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then maybe you could have even a prequel that focused on how the post-apocalyptic society was formed, all that. I'm sure there were plenty of battles and struggles, and how were the smokers formed, how did the atolls got constructed and built, and why did those people survive. So these are the two options I would like to see.
I think your phone is ringing and it's Jean Triplehorn.
Oh,
Look,
wow.
Because she wants to get back.
She wants to get back
to a career.
There you go. We need to. We'll put it as the elder, and maybe Tina Majorino as she played Enola.
Yes, of course. She's now all grown up.
Yeah, so she could be the new matriarch, and maybe we can get Kevin Reynolds to make peace with Kevin Costner.
Well, they worked years later on something on TV. So
it's water under the bridge.
Yes.
Cool.
Pun intended.
Hey, there you go. Pardon the pun. But so I mean, you mentioned just as a wrap up, Waterworld was a great surprise. And I always like, when I watch a movie to find out about other recommendations within the genre, to explore maybe some titles that people aren't aware of. And I can only think of, other than Mad Max, of course, Quiet Earth, the New Zealand movie from 1985.
Never saw it.
No?
No.
But now over to you with your recommendations. What would be the post-apocalyptic titles that you...
Well, in fact, even if I like these kinds of movies, there are not many that are really, really good. And I would have to refer you back to Mad Max. And even the third one that you didn't see, that is the least successful one, even that has good things. And as all these kinds of things that we're discussing about new forms of society and new ways of the world functioning.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the best recommendation. And then I can think of some Italian rip-offs that are very, very cheap.
True. I mean, there are plenty of them. I was thinking about, I've never seen it, but Death Race 2000 and those kind of like 1970s.
Yes, that's Roger Corman, right?
You're right. Yeah. And even like, so you're not really into the sci-fi ones, say like less post-apocalyptic, but still, I don't know, Logan's Run or something like that.
Well, I love Logan's Run, but I would never equate Logan's Run with this.
No.
Because one thing is a dystopian future,
and
the another one is this scrappy, we have to fight to survive, which I think that's very different.
Yeah. I mean, just on a final note, and since we spoke about movies that weren't made, I was recently reading an interview between John Carpenter and Nicolas Cage, and then obviously I listened to his albums, the non-soundtrack ones, and I read about some of his unmade projects, and there's one quite interesting that's, I think it would be right up your alley, the one with Cher that was never made, about set in a post-apocalyptic world where Cher needs to travel across the land to do something, I don't know, get surgery or...
Where I believe that Cher knew that Tina Turner had entered in the Mad Max one, so maybe she had to also.
Yeah, this was like mentioned around 89, so post her Oscar win and long after Tina Turner starred in Beyond Thunderdome.
But if you talk about John Carpenter, you have Escape from New York. Can be put on this conversation.
It is right. It is, and even Escape from LA, which I
like also.
I do too.
Even if it's lambasted also. So
yeah, but they do the whole thing, like pretty much the new energy sources, everything, the new society. I mean, it's not as outlandish or as, well, maybe as dramatic, but still, I think it would be a suitable, not direct comparable, but still.
Yes, I think it deserves to be in this conversation, yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, let's wrap it up here. Antonio, it was great to have the opportunity to discuss this movie with you, and it was great. I mean, you're very kind with the fact that you spent almost 5 hours of your time recently taking a dive into Kevin Reynolds and Costner's world.
It is me that thanks you, because I like these movies. It was not time bad spent. or not well spent.
Yeah.
So
You had fun.
yes, I had fun watching the movies and talking to you. So thank you.
It's great stuff. So even if we don't have a Waterworld, maybe we can get back together and talk about Furiosa in
Yes,
a year's
please.
time or 2 years' time when the movie is released.
Yes, I hope it's a
good.
masterpiece like Fury Road.
So do I. So do I.